He says this, do the thing and you shall have the power. I don't know enough to know what this is really called. It's some sort of law. It's weird. And this pertains to real estate, but I think it can pertain to anything. I've found that when I get off my butt and I go do something that is going to progress my business, like let's say I'm going and door knocking and I'm talking to people in the neighborhood. Every single time I do that, another person comes to me in my business and asks for help, whether it's a buyer or seller or investor. I mean, almost every single time. Or somebody will call me randomly the next day with a referral.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with that door knocking, but it was something about the action of doing.
For sure.
And so do the thing and you shall have the power. Hey guys, before we get started on this next episode, we want to stop and thank you for helping us become one of the top 5 real estate related podcasts in Arizona. Please remember to like and smash that subscribe button.
This is The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Whether you're a seasoned real estate expert, a first-time home buyer, or if you're simply passionate about hearing small business stories, this is the podcast for you. Join us as we dive deep into the world of real estate and beyond.
All right, well, welcome to episode 37 of The Real Deal. I am your host, Janine Igliani, and I'm hanging out with none other than Ryan Hatcher today.
Co-host.
What's up, Ryan?
What's up, guys?
And today we're talking, and actually this is like we're going to do a book review of The Slight Edge. So something super cool about us is in our team meetings, we love to go through books as a team and discuss them chapter by chapter. Yeah, and out of all the books we've done, sorry, Ryan.
No, you're good.
This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we do it about once a quarter, maybe even a little bit more often. And how this kind of came about was I've been thinking about this for a while. This is the second time I've read this book. The first time was about 8 years ago. And there were a couple principles in this book that I had never forgotten that were they just stuck with me. And so I was going to make some YouTube, like short videos, just little brief things to talk about some of these principles. And Jeannie's like, why don't we make a podcast about it? I'm like, yes.
Because there's so much to say.
Yeah, because then we can actually talk about it
and
dive into some of the principles a little bit more. But
I would say, though, I would highly recommend anybody. Well, let me ask you, Ryan, who's this book for?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's for anybody that wants to be successful in life. Or wants to be happy, really. I mean, what this says is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, turning simple disciplines into massive success and happiness. So there you go.
Here you go. Yeah. I think if you're a teenager and you can read this and get these lessons inside of you at an early age, I think you're going to set yourself up for success so much faster.
Oh yeah. I wish I had this around.
Right?
You know? Yeah,
I agree.
Sure. Just the daily habits.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're going to talk about lots of cool things today.
Let's do it.
But if you were to basically tell someone about The Slight Edge, how would you condense this into a couple of sentences? Like, what is this about?
Yeah. This would be my synopsis. I think The Slight Edge is a book on how to live your life and how to be successful and how to do it incrementally. And that what a lot of us think of when we think of success, we think it's these big rocks and these big audacious goals. And what it really comes down to is it's the small things that we do on a consistent basis that add up to that success. And so this is all about how to get in those good habits, get in those good mindset, thoughts, small daily actions that are going to help you to be successful and live a better life.
Right. So I agree. I mean, I think we all know people that read a lot of books, but they never quite get to where they want to be, or they're not quite successful for whatever reason. And I think it's because, a lot of the books out there are good, have some good nuggets, but I don't know how effective we are at putting them into practice and actually acting on them. Mm-hmm. And so one of the principles that I wanted to mention, and this is what he talks about over and over and over in this book. He says this, do the thing and you shall have the power.
Yeah. We were just saying, right? How many times is this in the book? I don't know.
I would bet 20 times. And I highlighted
more.
it almost every single time. That was actually a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, by the way. But how does that apply? Like, how have you seen that apply in your life?
I think it starts with a lot of us, and we talk about this all the time. We get stuck in like that analysis paralysis, right? We're so busy thinking and planning and plotting and not actually doing. And I think what he's saying is do the thing, like get off your butt and take that first step, take that first action. That's how you're going to get there.
Yeah. So we've talked about this many times as well. And I don't know enough to know what this is really called, but it's some sort of law. It's weird. And this pertains to real estate, but I think it can pertain to anything. I've found that when I get off my butt and I go do something that is going to progress my business, like let's say I'm going and door knocking and I'm talking to people in the neighborhood. Every single time I do that, another person comes to me in my business and asks for help, whether it's a buyer or seller or investor. I mean, almost every single time. Or somebody will call me randomly the next day with a referral.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with that door knocking, but it was something about the action of doing.
For sure.
And so do the thing and you shall have the power.
Yeah.
I mean, how often we know what to do. Like if we want to get in shape, we pretty much know what we need to do. Most people do. It's really math.
Yeah.
It's calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
For most people.
Well, and also I would say to that point, it's the small, like so many of us, I have people like this in my life that are like extreme one way or the other. They think they have to be like all in, like hardcore. Oh my gosh. Or it's like, forget it. I'm blowing my diet. I'm just going to go off the deep end. Right.
Yeah.
Or I can't work out hardcore, so I'm just going to do nothing.
Right.
But what they don't realize is if they just did something, that's better than nothing. In here, he talks about in the first chapter, the beach bum and the millionaire. Okay. And those are separated by very small differences, and it slowly takes you on this trajectory, right? Based on those daily things that you do, where either you're going this way or you're going this way, but oftentimes it's subtle. It's in those subtle daily habits.
Yeah. He makes a comment about our health and how we eat. And he said, we dig our own graves every day with our teeth.
Yes.
So one of the main principles of this book is this trajectory. It's a chart. So you have this straight line representing time as time goes on. And then you have the option every day to make little decisions that will project you in an upward status over time or a downward trend over time. So with food, for example, let's say I have a cheeseburger today. I'm not going to gain 300 pounds today. I'm not going to have a heart attack, most likely, from that cheeseburger. But I have the cheeseburger. If I have a salad today, I'm probably not going to be in amazing shape. I'm not going to get ripped, right, in that one meal.
Yep.
But when we repeat those small decisions over time, imagine what you will look like and feel like and how active you'll be at age 70 versus somebody who had cheeseburgers and donuts every day.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We've all seen photos, like memes of 80-year-olds, like one that's super ripped and one that's not, and like feeble and with a walker. And they both say, or it'll say like, these two are both 80 years old. Which would you rather be, and what's your choice? That kind of thing.
Well, and to that point, I love that because it is a choice. And that's what's really powerful to me in all of this is none of us are victims of we don't have to be at least victims of our circumstances, victims of our genetics. We really get to make choices that will impact and change our life. So if you're not happy with where you're at, if you're not happy with the path that you're on or what's going on in your life, you have all the power to change it.
That's so funny. So I just had a thought. So when I was in college, I did an internship in a production facility where they were manufacturing food. And I remember talking to so many people that worked there, and some had a happy disposition and some were miserable, it seemed. Many were actually. And I found out that many of them had college degrees and had the opportunity to do other things, but they chose to be there and they just complained about it all the time. It was almost like they hated their job, but they were content enough to keep doing it. And I just thought, man, why would you do that? Life is way too short. Why would you do something that makes you miserable just for a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And I know you have to have a job and provide for your family, right? But we have choices, especially if I mean, you live in America,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, and one of the things that, again, here's that line, do the thing and you shall have the power. He talks in here about the idea of just doing it and just trying. And so many of us don't because we're afraid of failure, but really failure is helping us to get closer to where we want to be.
Yeah.
And to almost embrace failure and knowing, okay, that's leading me forward so that I'm closer to what my ultimate goal is. Because now I know this isn't the path, this isn't the way, this isn't whatever. And you have to try. And what's great about trying is sometimes you get it and sometimes it works and you are on the right path. But if we don't try and we're afraid of failure, we'll never know.
yeah.
So you got to try.
Good. There's another principle that he talks about that was super impactful to me early on in my career. And he uses this phrase, master the mundane. Mm-hmm. So what's mundane, right? That's stuff that's not fun, that nobody really loves or enjoys or is excited about, right? So I think of working out.
Yes.
Right? So I love working out, but some days I do not love working out. And getting up at 5:30 every day or most days and starting a workout by 5:45 is mundane. But I've found that by doing that every day and just making no excuse, it has changed me. And so for probably 6 or 7 months, I haven't missed but 2 days. And I say I haven't missed a day because the day after that, I did 2 workouts to make sure I made up for it, right? So it's probably 7 months now. And I've learned a lot about discipline and about mastering simple tasks that most people won't do. And he says this, successful people will do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do.
Yes. 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 It's like in our business, sometimes it's the little things like the handwritten note cards, the text messages, the phone calls, right? And it's not that we have to make 20 of them or 100. Sometimes it's 5 a day, and how impactful and powerful that can be when done consistently and regularly, right?
So let's go. I kind of want to jump around a little bit. So here was one of the principles that really impacted me when I first read this years ago. And that is the concept of the space shuttle. Okay. So he said, on its way to landing astronauts safely on the surface of the moon, an Apollo rocket is actually on course from the Earth to the moon only 2 to 3% of the time. So 97% of the time, at least, this space shuttle is not on course. And I love that because essentially what they're doing, these astronauts, is they're making minor course corrections
all the
almost
time.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And he said, if you really want to understand the concept of this, for every 30 minutes that space shuttle is traveling to the moon from the Earth, about 1 minute is it on track. So how does that apply to life?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. What do you think?
I think you have to constantly be reevaluating and holding yourself accountable to those daily tasks. Because if you were to just float and coast and let the wind take you where it's going to take you, you're going to get off track.
Yeah.
You're going to get off course. You're going to lack motivation. And so you have to have those kind of guardrails that are going to bump you back to the right direction, the right pathway.
That's good. The bumpers and bowling. Well, so I kind of had an experience with that when Karen and I were fairly newlywed. I think we had one child at the time. P90X came out, and that was a big thing, like this at-home workout thing with Tony Horton. He was the man. And
Insanity, wasn't that one of them?
That was one of them too, yeah. And so I would, because it was a 90-day workout program, and I would get to about 30 days, 40 days, and then something would happen. Something in life, whether it was a schedule change, we had a baby, I had an injury, something that would prevent me, or at least I stopped progressing on it. So then I would stop, and then I would start over again. And I kid you not, I probably restarted that program 15 times.
Yep.
And one day, Kara, she said, when I said I was going to start it over again, she just kind of rolled her eyes and she said something like, how many times are you going to do this?
Oh.
Almost like, what are you doing? You know?
Right. Right.
And
She's calling you out.
And
Ryan.
she was. And so,
I love it.
and I actually look back and I am glad.
Yeah.
But I said, I look at this totally differently.
Yeah.
How many people would have stopped at the second attempt or the third? Most people.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to just keep restarting and say, okay, I'm doing it now and I'm getting on it.
Well, I would say trying again.
Yeah.
The quote in here, which I absolutely love this because of Ray's story with persevering, but he says in here that perseverance is a great substitute for talent. The ones that don't give up and that keep going and keep trying, they're the ones that are going to make it and be successful. More often, those that just naturally have great talent and great ability.
That's good. So this concept of the space shuttle being off course 97% of the time, I think it's good to go into life and whatever goal we have, expecting to be off course, expecting it not to be perfect. If you're trying to eat healthy and you have a donut, so what? Get back on track. It's okay.
You've got to have a donut every once in a while,
well, I do.
Ryan.
I do. That's for dang sure. Especially with how many donuts we give out to people at our events.
This is a big one. And I think this is like really encapsulates the principle of the slight edge. It says the things that create success in the long run don't look like they're having any impact at all in the short run. And that's the problem. Why so many people give up is because and it's like this with our business, a geographic farming. It's like this with weight loss. It's like this in most any business venture. You start out and you do the thing a few times and you don't see the results, right? To your point, you eat salads for a week and you don't lose any weight. Or you send out a postcard for 3 months and you don't get anybody that calls you to come sell their house. People give up. And the problem is had they just hung on and kept going, that's where the win is.
It's usually right
around the corner.
Yeah. Or right after you want to quit.
Yep.
So he talks about 7 habits, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the 5th one is to have a burning desire backed by faith. So that's exactly what you're talking about.
I love that.
So you have this desire that's burning. Well, he says burning isn't fun. It doesn't feel good. It has to be intense. So whatever it is you're desiring, you need to feel it. But then you also need to move forward with faith that what you're doing, those little things, are going to, produce the result you want, right?
He says in here, people don't consistently do those simple things for 3 reasons. Number 1, while they're easy to do, they're also easy not to do. I think that's powerful. Number 2, you don't see any results at first. And number 3, they seem insignificant, like they don't matter, but they do.
That salad.
Right?
That cheeseburger.
Right?
Yep.
The postcards being sent on a regular basis.
Right. The phone calls, all that. Okay, so here's another one. This one was an eye-opener for me, okay? And this has to do with just life in general. So how many people would you say go to the average person's funeral? Any idea?
I mean, I read the book.
Yeah. Well, so he doesn't actually answer that. Like I would say, I've been to funerals where there's 2,000 people. I've been to some where there's 30, How many do you want to have at your funeral?
Right.
A lot, right?
I mean,
that just because to me that shows that I impacted a lot of people in this life in a positive way. So here's the crazy thing. The average funeral, there are 10 people that actually cry during the funeral. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
So let's say there's 100 people there. 10 of them are
I'd be
crying.
one of those criers because I'm a crier.
Yeah. I have a hard time when I see grown men cry, especially, or if it's a child that died.
Oh, that would hurt me. Yeah.
But only 10 people cry. Okay, now here's the other part. Of the people that showed up to the funeral, the number one factor that would lead them to go to the next step after the funeral service, to go to the actual gravesite service right after, the number one factor as to whether or not these people would go was the weather.
Yeah, crazy.
So if the weather is inclement, 50% of those people are going to just go home. They're not actually going to go to your graveside service. So few people are going to cry, and half of the people there aren't even going to go if the weather's bad. And so I remember reading this and thinking, man, we spend so much of our lives worried about what other people think. And that's one of his points. Why? Why do we spend so much time worrying about what other people think?
And I guarantee they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are.
Yeah. It blows my mind, actually.
Yeah.
And so how many people, or even us, I mean, how many times have we not done something because we were worried about what somebody else thought? That was actually a good thing or something we wanted to do, right? Are there things in your life that you're not doing that would be amazing, or at least, something that would take you towards your goals because you're afraid of what other people think?
It's a lesson for our youth. I see that with my kids. They're so worried what their friends are going to think or that's embarrassing, mom, or whatever. And I'm like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
I say that all the time. Nobody cares.
Yeah. And I think we all inherently care more about that stuff when we're teenagers than we do when we're in our 40s and 50s.
Right.
I know the older I get, the less I care.
Right.
Now, do we all want to have good, reputations?
For sure.
Of course. And if you're going to be in business, you need to have one, right?
Yep.
And that's important. But at the same time, how much should you be caring about what other people think, especially haters, right?
Yeah.
So if you're successful at anything, you're going to have haters.
Yes.
So what do you do with that, right?
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother thing.
That is killing with kindness.
And learn how to deal with that.
This is something that I think is super powerful that I honestly will say to myself. It says successful people do whatever it takes to get the job done, whether or not they feel like it. And we talk about this all the time, that there's so many times where I don't feel like going to the gym in the morning. In fact, most of the time, if I'm honest, I get up, it's dark outside, it's cold. I hate the cold. I'm not a morning person. All these thoughts go through my mind of why I shouldn't go to the gym, but I do it anyways.
Yeah. Why?
Because it's
what are some of the thoughts that go through your head? You've shared them with me before.
Oh yeah. I know I'm going to feel better afterwards.
Okay.
I've already committed to doing it. It's a habit. So it feels weird not to. And I know it's the right thing to do. So it's like, I'm going to do this. And I literally say that to myself, Janine, successful people do it even when they don't want to.
Yeah. So this has been a kind of a transformation for me on the whole workout thing. I was inspired by some really good mentors and friends and people that I've just followed that are very successful in life. They're really successful men. And one of the things is, for me, I want my kids to look at dad and say, I need to be like my dad.
Yes.
Right? Or how healthy are they going to be if I'm not healthy?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Are they going to be fit? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, I've told you this, that there's times when I'm working out and I'm like exhausted and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, especially doing burpees. I hate burpees.
yeah.
And I'll picture my kids watching me and standing on the sidelines.
Is mom going to give up?
Right. And then I'm like, it makes me show up better.
That's
for
awesome.
them.
I
right.
love that. Yeah. Okay. So here's another one. Reading. Okay. So listen to this. Among high school graduates that don't go on to college, 58% never read a book again in their lives. Okay?
It's crazy.
So that's nuts.
It's nuts.
And,
Why? Why would you not?
And I'm not even talking about slight edge stuff or leadership or personal development. I'm talking about anything, like Harry Potter even. So that's crazy. And then he talks about 7 billion people on the earth. I think there's actually 8 or 9 billion now. Over 1 billion people on this planet do not know how to read. Okay? So for somebody who graduated from high school, doesn't go to college, doesn't ever touch a book again, it's over 50%, by the way, that never touch a book. How different are they than those that don't know how to read?
They're no different.
So that's crazy.
They're no different.
So I also read this statistic a long time ago, and it may be a lot different now. It could be higher, but if you read 7 or more books a year, and I'm talking about stuff like this that will actually provide education for you, you are 122% more likely to become a millionaire than those who do not. 7.
It's an easy thing to do.
Okay, so
let's do it.
So one of the things he talks about in here, and this is the simple daily disciplines. Most books like this are about 300 pages, okay? So he says if you read 10 pages a day, that's it, 10 pages a day, that would take you maybe, 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. You've now read 1 book a month. You do that every month, that's 12. Now your chance of becoming a millionaire is way higher than 122%, right? So good concept there. I love that. And that's kind of how this came about.
Yeah.
That's why we do this.
For sure.
We read these things and we try to improve and get better.
one of the chapters talks a lot about happiness and how happiness affects us. And he says in here, elevated levels of happiness create elevated levels of health performance, social involvement, marital fulfillment, financial and career success, and longevity. That's like really, really powerful. Just the idea of focusing on happiness. And these are ways, I know sometimes this is where that whole like it's a choice and the battle of your mind comes into play. He talks about 5 happy habits. Every morning, write down 3 new things you're grateful for. When you choose to focus on things you're grateful for, it totally changes your perspective on things versus focusing on the things you're not grateful for. He says, journal 2 minutes a day about a positive experience from the past 24 hours. Meditate daily for a few minutes. At the start of every day, write an email to someone praising or thanking them, and get 15 minutes of simple cardio exercise a day. That's another reason I work out, is stress relief. But on number 4, where he talks about sending someone a message, thanking them or praising them, I will tell you guys, last night, I told these guys earlier, a friend of mine had sent me a voice text, and she was just saying how she loves our podcast and is so proud of it and thinks it's amazing and all. It was so nice. It literally brought me to tears.
That's awesome.
And I was like, wow. And I was in a moment where I actually really needed to hear that. And it meant so much to me. So I think there's so much power in taking time intentionally to reach out to others and tell them that you appreciate them, you're proud of them, they're great, whatever. And you naturally feel better doing that. One of the things I'm actually going to talk about tonight is the law of receptivity, where when you give, you naturally receive, right? And so when we're giving compliments, how powerful that is and how we're blessed in return. That's like an unintended consequence, right? Our intention is to bless the other person by complimenting them, but we get blessed in return. It's pretty cool.
That is awesome. So I want to read this. This is along those same lines, okay? Has to do with just happiness in general. According to research, people who consistently practice seeing opportunities instead of problems, who focus on the best in a situation rather than the worst, so your positive outlook, who notice other people's better qualities and look past their weaker ones, who see the glass as at least half full in every circumstance. They are happier, more creative, they earn more money, they have more friendships, they have better immune response, they have less heart disease and strokes, they have better and long-lasting marriages, they live longer, and they are more successful in their careers.
Yep.
So I don't know how many reasons you need, but if just pick one of them. If that's your reason to be more positive in general, that's pretty amazing.
What are some things you do, Ryan, to focus on happiness or to help in that area?
Well, I was just actually talking to my wife about this last night. I'm pretty good at seeing the glass half full and responding in tough situations with people outside of my house. I'm much better outside of my house than I am inside my house.
Really?
And I think that's probably pretty common for most people. We tend to give our families sometimes the worst side of us because we're so comfortable, right? Not something that we're all ever proud of, but so that's something I need to work on, is just be more patient and chill at home. But I love Lori. So Lori on our team, one of her favorite quotes is always assume good intentions. And, we tell ourselves all kinds of stories about why people do what they do.
Yes. Our clients do all the time.
And I think it was 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, where Stephen R. Covey talks about this guy who comes on the bus. It's like the city bus, and everybody's just sitting there quietly in the morning reading the newspaper. And this guy comes on, and these kids are just unruly. They're all over the place, right? And he's thinking, why didn't this guy take care of his kids? Like, you're clearly disturbing people. And he's about to say something, and somebody beats him to it and says something to him. And the guy turns and says, he kind of wakes up from his stupor, and he said, "I'm sorry, we just left the hospital where their mother died, and I haven't quite figured out how to tell them," that kind of thing. And so he said instantly his paradigm shifted. So instead of, why aren't you taking care of your kids, it was more compassionate, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's true. I mean, I have like major, it's like road rage. I get very annoyed with bad drivers. oftentimes I'm probably because I'm in a hurry. And so I like need to get somewhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
these people are bugging me. But I remember, and I've shared this with you guys, when my mom had her stroke and all my back and forths from the hospital, I would just be zoned out. And there'd be times where I'd be just driving so slow. And it was because I was so like just sad and just trying to deal with my mom and all of that, that I couldn't even focus on driving. And so I always think about that like, you just never know,
Yeah.
like, what are they dealing with? So,
Yeah. Somebody cuts you off. Maybe they're trying to get to the hospital.
right.
I mean,
You just never know.
So, I mean, I am far from perfect at that, but that's one of the things I try to do.
Yeah. I love that though. I love that about Lori. It's been really helpful for me.
Yes. And she's a great reminder because she
Oh,
often
she is.
reminds
She
us
does.
of this.
She does.
Yeah.
I love this little section. He talks about your own thoughts are one of the most powerful examples of the slight edge there is. And that's just what we were just talking about, of like reframing our thoughts and being intentional with them. He says, this is true of positive thoughts and just as true of negative thoughts. And he goes on to say that be careful what you wish for, you might just get it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're constantly thinking of negative and you're pessimistic and all of that, then that might be where you actually end up heading. Versus if you were to be intentional with your thoughts, where could you actually go? The idea of what you focus on expands, I think, is so true, that if you're focusing on the negative, that's going to grow. And if you're focusing on the positive, that's also going to grow.
So that reminds me, I will find this in just a minute, about this. It's one of my favorite poems that has so much to do with that. Okay, here it is.
Let's go.
So you talk about your thoughts. This is super impactful. It's called My Wage, and I think it's Jesse Bell Rittenhouse who wrote it. It says, I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is just an employer. He gives you what you ask, but once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. So basically, we get out of life what we want. And if we think about the things we really want and we try to work towards those, then we will have them. We get to create that. That's one of my favorite poems.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. This on page 210, he talks about the power of reflection. He says, in my business, I often see people make the mistake of thinking they're being productive because they're being busy. Being productive and being busy are not necessarily the same thing. Doing things won't create your success. Doing the right things will. And if you're doing the wrong things, doing more of them won't increase your odds of success. It will only make you fail faster. So I think being intentional with what you're doing, and it's not about just staying busy. It's about actually doing productive things, right?
Love it.
Love it.
He says this, and Jim Rohn talks about this a lot too. Your income will never long exceed your own level of personal development. Mm-hmm. So you might have the occasional lottery winners, right? But how often do they actually lose it? Mm-hmm. Quite a bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
But if you're really wanting to improve your income, then you need to improve your value.
Yeah.
And you need to improve your value by your own personal development.
Yeah.
And your circle.
Yeah.
So you talked about the law of reflection.
Yep.
He mentions the law of association.
Mm-hmm.
So you've all heard this before, and you probably tell your kids this. You are the combined average of the 5 people you spend the majority of your time with.
Yes.
That is the truth.
Yes. Pay attention. I say this to them all the time of like, who are you hanging out with? And are they bringing you up or are they bringing you down?
Right.
That's why we're super intentional with our circle and who we associate with, who we choose to work with, who we allow to work with us, right?
Yeah. So we actually just talked about this concept. We're going to start a little book club about investing.
Yes.
And there are a couple books, one in particular, where we're going to read together and talk about it and put ourselves in a room with people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then we can all learn or teach and,
For sure.
and get better at that. So the law of association, Huge. So choose your friends wisely, peeps.
Yes, kids especially.
Okay. So, I mean, we could go on and on and on about this. There's so many cool things. I feel like we've done justice
Yeah,
in
you good
covering
with it?
most of these things. But I would highly recommend, I guess let me finish with this. So he kind of ends the book talking about these habits, right? The first one is to show up. And he talks about his daughter who was attending the University of Florida, and she wanted to end, her college career high on the list and be a top of her class. And she was super overwhelmed because there were like 4,000 kids there, right? Freshmen or something, maybe even more.
That were all-star students.
Yes. And he said, show up to every class and study 2 hours a day. You do that consistently and you will see. And he was exactly right. Within a couple weeks, 80% of those people dropped out. Those kids dropped out of those classes or out of the running.
Yeah.
And I saw this in my life in corporate America, especially with our age group and younger. If you showed up to work every day on time, you just beat out 50% of your population,
Right.
50% of your competition when it came to the raise. Mm-hmm. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same with real estate.
For sure.
I mean, 90% of the production is done by 10% of the field, approximately.
Yeah.
And if you show up and you want to do a good job and you care about your service and your output, your product or whatever, you're going to now be in the top 20%.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. The second one is be consistent. We've kind of talked about that. Show up every day. Do it every day. The third one is be positive. Have a positive outlook. The fourth one is to commit to long term. So when it comes to working out, you're not going to get in shape in 30 days if it took you 5 years to get out of shape, right? So it needs to be a long-term thing. For me, I feel like I want to live until I'm 90 plus.
Right.
If I can make it to 100 and I'm still active, score.
Yeah.
But that's only going to happen if you're active.
For sure.
The fifth one is burning desire, backed by faith. We talked about that. 6 is pay the price. And then the seventh one is practice slight edge integrity when nobody's watching. So those workouts, or you sleep in, you hit snooze, nobody really knows. I mean, your spouse might, right? But you know. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do that, then you've just now basically lied to yourself. Mm-hmm. So I guess we can end on those habits, but highly recommend this book. If you would like to talk about it, let us know.
Well, and I think anybody that's watching this that is interested in real estate or interested in any sort of business, you want to be around people that are like-minded, that operate out of integrity, that are positive, that are go-getters, that are going to do the right thing when no one's watching. And I think that's totally who we are.
Yeah.
So much so that we actually practice this as a team and invest in personal development as a team because we think it's important.
Yeah.
Right. So
I have a quick story about that. So one day I was talking to another realtor who lives in the community that I do a lot of business in. And she made a comment that she saw me one time pick up somebody else's open house sign.
oh yeah.
And I remember I was picking up my open house signs and there were 2 or 3 others and one of them was knocked over by the wind. So I just picked hers up. It wasn't even this lady, it was another person. I picked this one up and just set it up because I'm like, that would stink if
Totally.
people missed it because it was on the main drive,
Yeah.
the main road. So you may not even know where to go from there. And I had no idea anybody saw that. And she saw it.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, we have
Right.
a conversation about it.
You never know who's watching.
So that was a pretty cool eye opener for me. There's always somebody watching.
I love that.
And so, yeah,
I
anyway.
love that. Well, I love this and would love to, I don't know, what's our next book? We got to figure that out.
I don't know. Yeah, we haven't decided, but I am going to read Atomic Habits.
Yes, you got to.
I've listened to the summary and I've kind of dabbled with it, but that one, because he talks about habits in here too.
Yep.
And so I am going to dig into that one because
Yeah.
that's a top book of all time.
It's a popular one
for
for
many
sure.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
So, but if you guys read The Slight Edge and you have learned some things or got something from this podcast, we'd love to hear
Yeah,
from you.
let us know. That would be so
If
cool.
you want to see more of this type of podcast, we'd love to do it. And I will say, if I'm reading with the intent to talk about it like this or teach it or whatever, it enters your brain in a different way.
Oh, for sure.
So for me, I feel like I got a lot more out of it with this approach. So
I love that. Well, you're going through it again. That's awesome.
yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. This was fun.
cool. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Make sure to follow or subscribe to the Home Selling Team on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify to stay up to date with our podcast.